3 Philippine aircraft that it claimed illegally entered airspace near the Spratly Islands in the South China Sea.
The Philippines controls 9 features in the Spratly Islands, a cluster it collectively calls the Kalayaan Island Group in the South China Sea. At the heart of these outposts is Thitu Island, known locally as Pagasa Island, the largest and most developed among them. Pagasa isn't just a military post. It's a small but thriving community with civilians, a school, a municipal office, plus a 1.3-kilometer airstrip and a sheltered port. It sits roughly 230 nautical miles from the nearest Philippine shoreline. In 1971, the Philippines established its presence on West York Island, known as Pagasa Island, covering 18.6 hectares, 46 acres. As the third largest natural feature in the Spratlys and the second largest held by the Philippines, Pagasa lies 47 miles northeast of Pagasa and 198 nautical miles from Palawan. From 1970 to 1978, the Philippines expanded its presence across several features in the Spratly Islands, securing a total of 9 occupied locations. In 1970, Manila gained control of Nanshan Island, Lawak Island, and 7.93-hectare feature located 98 miles east of Pagasa and 152 nautical miles from Palawan. That same year, the Philippines also occupied Lawita Island, Kota Island, a 6.45-hectare feature positioned southeast of Pagasa, near the northern edge of dangerous ground. By 1971, the Philippines secured Northeast Kai, Parola Island, a 12.7-hectare feature northwest of Pagasa and one of the largest natural islands under Philippine control. That same year, Manila also took over Flat Island, Patag Island, one of the smallest natural features in the Spratlys, located just north of Lawak Island and 160 nautical miles from Palawan. In 1977, the Philippines strengthened its foothold by establishing a position on 2nd Thomas Shoal, Ayungin Shoal, a submerged reef 110 nautical miles west of Palawan. Since 1999, a small Navy detachment has maintained the outpost aboard the BRP Sierra Madre, intentionally grounded there to assert Philippine presence. Nearby is Lawita Kai, Panada Island, a 0.53-hectare feature about 5 nautical miles from Kota Island. The Philippines formally claimed it in 1978. Farther south, the country also occupies Commodore Reef, Rizal Reef, an atoll complex west of Balabac Island, first secured in 1977. Of the 9 total Philippine-held features, 5 lie within the country's 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, while 4 fall outside it. The most developed and strategically important outpost, Pagasa Island, Thitu Island, sits about 270 nautical miles from Palawan, placing it beyond the Philippines' EEZ, but remaining central to its presence in the Spratlys. Still, with its permanent civilian residence and substantial landmass, Pagasa strengthens the Philippines' territorial position and solidifies its legal presence as offshore territory. Under international law, it generates its own 12 nautical mile territorial sea, independent of EEZ boundaries. The Department of Foreign Affairs, DFA, has emphasized repeatedly that the Philippines' sovereignty over islands and rock features in the West Philippine Sea does not depend on whether those features fall inside the nation's exclusive economic zone. Addressing public misunderstandings, such as the idea that maritime rights stem solely from EEZ limits or that sovereignty over high tide features changes based on nearby maritime zones, the DFA stresses that Philippine sovereignty over the Kalayaan Island Group, KIG, and the territorial seas of its high tide features is long established and not tied to EEZ placement. Under Republic Act 12064, aligned with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, the maritime zones on the western side of the Philippine archipelago, including the Luzon Sea, the territorial sea of Bayo de Masinloc, and the maritime features of the CAIG, are collectively recognized as the West Philippine Sea. The Philippines bases its claim to the Kalayaan Island Group on the principle that after Japan renounced its sovereignty in the 1951 San Francisco Treaty of Peace, the islands reverted to terra nullius, since no state was explicitly given title, allowing the Philippines to assert its claim. In 1956, when Filipino explorer Thomas Cloma announced his claim over 33 maritime features in the Spratly Islands, no other nation held a legally recognized title to them. Decades later, in 1978, President Ferdinand Marcos issued a decree outlining 3 foundations for the Philippines' rightful claim: its geographic closeness to the archipelago, its historical ties, and the expiration of competing claims. After Congress passed a law in March 2009, aligning Philippine baselines with the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, the country's claim to the territorial waters around the Kalayaan Island Group relied on low water baselines, meaning these features were not treated as an archipelagic grouping. The Philippines also maintains that Scarborough Shoal was transferred from Spain to the United States in 1898, along with surrounding maritime features, and that the Philippines inherited the shoal upon gaining independence. Meanwhile, in the broader and increasingly complex Spratly Islands dispute, several nations took control of different features. Vietnam occupies the most, while Taiwan controls the largest single island, Thitu Island, also known as Taiping Island. The South China Sea remains one of the most contested regions in the world, with China, Vietnam, and Taiwan claiming the entire Spratly archipelago, while the Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei assert sovereignty over select features. These overlapping claims have fueled decades of tension, with China often seen as the primary driver of the dispute. Although territorial disagreements have existed for years, China has steadily expanded its efforts to assert broad economic and military control across the region. Both China and Taiwan describe the South China Sea as historic waters, a claim visually represented by the sweeping U-shaped 9-dash line, sometimes shown with up to 11 dashes. However, the line's boundaries lack clear coordinates and conflict with international maritime law, specifically the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. UNCLOS. Countries most affected by China's expansive claims include Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei, while global powers, especially the United States, have become increasingly involved in countering China's regional influence. The roots of today's tensions stretch back to shifting power dynamics after World War II, setting the foundation for the long-standing rivalry. China's claim originates from the 11-dash line first introduced in 1947 by the nationalist government under Chiang Kai-shek. After the communist victory and establishment of the People's Republic of China, Beijing adopted and later revised this map into the modern 9-dash line. For decades, the dispute stayed relatively subdued. But in the 1970s, China escalated its actions, motivated in part by potential oil and gas reserves beneath the seabed. It seized the Paracel Islands from South Vietnam in 1974, capturing additional features such as Johnson Reef, 1988, and Mischief Reef, 1994. Today, China controls all of the Paracels, while Vietnam occupies the largest number of Spratly features. Malaysia and Brunei maintain overlapping claims, highlighting the complexity of the region's fragmented maritime landscape. Within this contested region lies the Kalayaan Island Group, the set of features occupied by the Philippines. Though the Spratlys as a whole are known internationally, they should not be confused with the Kalayaan Group, which is under the municipality of Kalayaan, part of Palawan, the westernmost Philippine province facing the South China Sea. The Kalayaan Group contains more than 130 features, including 7 islands and 2 reefs occupied by the Philippines, covering a total area of about 290 square kilometers, 112 square miles. In contrast, the broader Spratly Islands stretch across nearly 409,000 square kilometers, 158,000 square miles, with most features submerged. Among the 12 major natural islets, the largest is Taiping Island, a 36-hectare, 90-acre feature controlled by Taiwan. The Philippines holds control over Thitu Island, locally known as Pagasa Island, a 37.2-hectare, 92-acre feature that serves as its main outpost in the Spratlys. Nearby, Spratly Island, sometimes called Storm Island, covers 15 hectares, 37 acres, and is under Vietnam's control. Vietnam now occupies the largest number of positions in the Spratly Islands, maintaining at least 21 sites, all of which have been expanded with artificial land. While Vietnam has the most occupied features, China has historically built the largest total artificial land area, transforming 7 major reefs into heavily fortified artificial islands. These outposts have undergone full militarization, yet recent reports suggest Vietnam is racing to match, or even surpass, China's pace of reclamation. The Philippines, meanwhile, holds 9 significant islands, claiming most of the cluster as the Kalayaan Island Group. Malaysia controls 5 features near its southeastern boundary of the archipelago, while Taiwan holds just 1, Taiping Island, Thitu Island, the biggest natural feature in the entire Spratly chain. Vietnam's island-building efforts have accelerated sharply. By March 2025, it had produced around 70% as much reclaimed land as China, and by early 2026, all 21 of Vietnam's rocks and low-tide elevations had been expanded with artificial land, far more than the 11 small, lightly built-up spots it had just 4 years earlier. China's 7 Spratly strongholds, Quateron, Fiery Cross, Gavin, Hughes, Johnson South, Mischief, and Subi Reefs, are now fully militarized, equipped with long runways, advanced radar arrays, and munitions depots. Beyond these outposts, China also keeps a constant Coast Guard presence at unoccupied features such as Scarborough Shoal, asserting practical control despite lacking physical structures. The Philippine government, for its part, is strengthening its defenses and reinforcing its foothold in the West Philippine Sea, with Pagasa Island acting as a key staging point in the Kalayaan Group. Increasing military presence there is part of a broader effort to secure its westernmost territories. The Philippines formally annexed Pagasa, also known worldwide as Thitu Island, in 1978. At only 37 hectares, roughly the size of 52 FIFA soccer fields, the island might seem insignificant, but its location along vital maritime trade routes gives it enormous strategic weight, especially amid ongoing territorial disputes and the rising US-China rivalry in the region. Simply put, Pagasa sits in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the West Philippine Sea. The Spratly Islands are packed with disputed features, and Pagasa Island sits right in the middle of this contested maze. Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan all hold claims in the surrounding waters, each vying for a piece of this strategic region. But looming the closest is China's massive military fortress on Subi Reef, barely 22 kilometers away. Armed with gun batteries, missile shelters, advanced radar stations, and hangars big enough for fighter jets. And Subi isn't alone. China's other fortified outposts on Mischief Reef and Fiery Cross stand not far off, creating a tightening ring around Pagasa. From these military bases, China regularly sends aircraft, patrol vessels, and unmanned drones to keep watch over everything happening around Pagasa and the nearby reefs. It was around 2014 when Beijing launched its rapid, large-scale transformation of 7 Spratly features. 11 years later, China controls a full network of militarized artificial islands, giving it far stronger surveillance, reconnaissance, and intelligence capabilities, along with the ability to deploy and resupply aircraft and naval ships deep into the region. Since the early 2000s, China's aggressive land reclamation drive, often called island building, has sharply expanded its footprint in the South China Sea. These new islands now host runways, barracks, naval piers, and air defense systems. Beyond military power, Beijing has used non-military tactics as well, sending massive fleets of fishing vessels into other nations' exclusive economic zones to reinforce its presence. Tensions escalated sharply in 2014 when China installed a large oil rig inside Vietnam's waters, igniting widespread protests across the country. Meanwhile, nearly all claimants in the region have detained foreign fishermen and sailors who they say trespassed into waters they consider their own. In 2013, the Philippines turned to international law, filing a case against China at the Arbitral Tribunal under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. 3 years later, in 2016, the tribunal delivered a landmark ruling. The 9-dash line had no legal basis, and wherever China's historical claims clashed with UNCLOS boundaries, UNCLOS prevailed. The court added that China's island-building activities, fishing practices, and interference with Philippine vessels inside the Philippines' EEZ were all unlawful. China rejected the ruling outright and refused to participate in the proceedings, setting the stage for the tense and volatile situation that persists over the South China Sea today. Yet the 2016 ruling didn't settle everything. Taiwan and several other countries rejected the decision, refusing to recognize the tribunal's authority. On the other side, the United States, Japan, and Australia openly supported the verdict. Within ASEAN, reactions were mixed. Member states remained split, and the organization failed to issue a unified response, exposing deep regional divisions. By the early 2000s, tensions were already rising as maritime run-ins increased, especially between China and the Philippines. These confrontations pushed Manila and Washington to hold joint naval exercises in the South China Sea, signaling growing concern over China's expanding footprint. Then, in August 2023, Beijing unveiled a revised territorial map, claiming an even larger swath of the sea. The update included a 10th dash, extending China's claim to cover Taiwan and nearly the entire Spratly Islands. The reaction was swift. Multiple countries rejected the map outright. Meanwhile, other claimants responded to China's expansion in their own ways. Vietnam, most notably, accelerated its own land reclamation and military buildup on various island features. Indonesia and the Philippines sought to rally international support to guard their exclusive economic zones from further Chinese encroachment. The United States, while claiming no territory in the region and maintaining an official stance of neutrality, nonetheless acted to counter China's moves, particularly when its allies were involved. In 2022, the Biden administration called on China to comply with the 2016 ruling and reaffirmed that the U.S. would stand beside the Philippines in maintaining stability in the South China Sea. Washington also strengthened its regional security network. It advanced partnerships like AUKUS with the United Kingdom and Australia, and deepened cooperation through the Quad, a strategic dialogue involving the United States, Australia, India, and Japan. The U.S. also sought closer ties with several ASEAN nations as concerns over China's intentions grew. Beijing's expanding ambitions in the South China Sea have strained relationships across the region. Many of China's neighbors now find themselves pulled closer to the United States, as both superpowers maneuver to protect their strategic interests in an increasingly contested Pacific.